Okay, we're going to talk about Blizzard QA allegations which came out.
We have our next part of today's story, which is Activision Blizzard's QA department speaking out. Basically, loads of statements and testimonies were provided to Kotaku by the ABK Workers Alliance. And there's a bunch of highlights here, although of course it's QA, so you know what it's going to be. Long hours, low pay, instability.
Alright, let's read this. List of statements and testimonies provided to Kotaku highlight the difficulties associated with being a QA tester, long hours, low pay, instability. But being a QA tester at Activision Blizzard specifically throws a few more problems into the mix. Most work weeks are between 50 and 60 hours, others clear 70. Pay is terrible. The ABK Workers Alliance did specify salary details beyond confirming the QA tester pay is low, though we have additional details from other services. One employee, wow.
People being treated like they are just a replaceable resource. So we've got most work weeks being between 50 and 60 hours, others saying 70 hours, and the pay being terrible. Now, the ABK Workers Alliance didn't share specific salary details other than saying that it's low, but the good news is we've got other stuff. So from Kotaku, one employee said that pay hovers around $14 an hour. $14 an hour. Now, this is interesting when we get into the money. Another person said between 15 and 17 an hour. Somebody who preferred to stay.
Well, I'd be curious to what these roles are. I mean, because, I was a QA manager, I was a QA tester, I was a QA engineer, I was all different facets of QA, and you got different levels. Because you can hire what we used to call, just straight up testers. They used to just run scripts and report results. And then you have people who design the scripts and design the stuff. And then you have people who came up with the test plans and the test cases, and they did, all that other stuff. And, map the requirements to the business and blah, 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 and come up with these really elaborate things. So the more you did, the more the pay would, increase, back in the day. But, entry level QA, you would just come in, you'd be able to read. What we look for when we hire entry level QA is the ability to document very well and to be able to read and comprehend. So it was just very basic, comprehension skills on top of some technical knowledge so you can get around technology and Windows and stuff and software and understand and be able to grow. We wanted to build people up. We didn't want to just hire grunts and fire them. I know these days they just want to hire grunts and fire them. So $14 an hour, I don't know what kind of role they're talking about, but if they're talking about like a senior QA engineer or someone who is not only running test cases and plans, but also designing them, building scripts, building frameworks, working with the dev team to come up with a lot of stuff. If they're being paid $14 an hour, that is awful.
Anonymous didn't share, but said that, they are paid, but they said they took a $7 an hour pay cut to get into Blizzard for QA, and it then took them 7 years to reclaim that $7.
That's got to be against the law somewhere.
That they lost, which is pretty damn grim. And
you took a $7 pay cut per hour because you're going to Blizzard. That's some rockstar nonsense right there. That fits the mold of their whole thing that Blizzard is going through right now. And then you had to make it up over 7 years. You got a $1 raise a year. That's disgusting.
Bloomberg recently did reveal that a lot of people, they would get into Blizzard because of the prestige, and the pay cut is something that they would call the Blizzard tax. Now, this is not good stuff.
Blizzard tax? Wow.
Now, if you look at Glassdoor, it suggests that QA jobs are averaging about a $50,000 a year salary at the national level, right. But there are testimonies that suggest it's not so good. Now, the thing...
Yeah, $50K a year sounds about right. Even a few years ago, like, the low end was like 40-something, 45, 40 to 45. And then you gradually work your way up. Some places even went as low as like 30, 35. And I used to laugh at those people. I'm like, y'all crazy. Come on now.
To really bring up here that's important is how much money this is for the location. So for the jobs in this role that are taking place in California, and I remember actually it wasn't for Blizzard, it was for Activision. But remember, they emailed us, and I think, was it $13? Yep. Or something like that. They said they were being paid. And that was like in the LA area.
You can barely live off of that in Florida. You are homeless in California making $13 an hour.
I believe. Now,
in the LA area, you are homeless. That's barely enough to buy food.
That's not a lot of money, and it's even worse in that region of the world. And I was looking at some tax calculators, and it seems like if you're in California and it's $50 a year, then you have an effective tax rate of like 18 point something %. And it was interesting comparing it to basically we are charged 20% tax here for all earnings under 37.5. That's called the basic rate, and it's 20%. And then anything, we also get a 12.5 grand sort of tax-free personal allowance.
He's Irish, right?
And it was just interesting comparing the compensation and stuff, and then thinking about the additional things that these people will have to pay, because it's in the US, and as we're going to cover, the likes of, say, healthcare not being provided by the employer are issues that are faced, okay, not in California, but I believe in Texas. There's issues there with healthcare, let's just say. So it's like, they're taxed sort of similarly to us. They then have got to pay for their own healthcare, and also the likes of property.
You're homeless.
I mean, if people knew how much we paid here in Belfast for rent, and then thought about how much it cost them in California, it's way less than half what we will pay here. So it's not only that they're not being paid befitting of the skill and all of that labor, it's that even then for the region it's bad. So there's Billy, a QA tester, who said they can't afford to live on their own. I don't have loans of any sort or children, and I live with my partner, so I think I'm better off than most. But I know many people who literally cannot take time off work right now, despite their mental health being awful, because they won't be able to afford basic necessities such as rent and food.
You're homeless. That's it, man. You're basically, that is atrocious. Like I'm starting to think, because when I was in this industry, it was not, at least for the companies I work for, it was not that bad. I mean, you got paid, your rates were based on your locale, because we hired remotely too. So your rate was based on your locale. It was adjusted for cost of living, unless you were stupid when you negotiated your salary and just took the first number they gave you. But this is a travesty, man. Because like I said, you could live off of that in Florida, but yeah, like this guy says, he lived with his partner. You probably have to live at home with your parents, or live with somebody else, or probably in a 4-way split studio or something crazy like that, which looks like if you've ever been in a studio with 4 people, it's pretty cramped. And I've heard stories about people in California and LA like splitting studios between 4 people, and everybody having like a corner, basically. It gets pretty bad.
I have to live in a house with at least 3 other people to afford to survive without skipping meals.
I just said that. Wow,
Said another anonymous tester. Even with 4 breadwinning adults in the house, it's difficult to make ends meet while still being available to work for Activision QA.
Okay, that's not worth working at Blizzard. That's just not. I don't care how prominent the company is. You're basically working for free. You're working for free.
I mean, that's wild, right? QA is really important. I think people who play World of Warcraft know what it feels like for, just not to feel like there's anywhere near enough QA going on. I mean, God, love these people. And
this may be telling to the state of the game. For real. If your QA is unhappy, they're not going to care about a lot of things. It's going to be a show up type of a job. It's like, I'm here, whatever. I can barely get by.
The state of modern Blizzard releases is such that there's no universe where they have a big enough QA department. That's just, I don't care what the internal explanations is. The quality of their product is decreasing in terms of like those objective things that QA is supposed to be there to pick up and help resolve. And the poor fuckers who are there are being treated so badly by the company. I mean, no wonder this is awful for the staff and awful for the customers. Now, benefits are also iffy. Health and dental insurance, paid time off, and sick leave. So in the USA, paid sick leave is not mandated on a federal level. It is a state-by-state thing. One of Blizzard's contract studios is based in Texas, which does not mandate paid sick leave. QA testers being mainly on contract means the company is not obliged to give them full-time benefits.
Right. Yeah. That's a very common thing in QA as well. I actually got contacted by a recruiter that found my old resume. They were trying to get me on a 6-month contract. Contracts are very, very common in QA, and most of them, they say contract to hire, but you really got to be a rock star and go above and beyond. You got to do more than what you're being paid for to most times meet the criteria for contract to hire. And like I said, generally QA positions are high turnover. Mainly because the companies that are looking to do them, they just need, I call them grunts. It's kind of archaic. It's a very, probably not a bad term, but they just need people to run scripts, test scripts, where they just go step by step by step by step and validate certain things. A lot of times these things are automated. A lot of times these things are integrated into dev processes and stuff. And QA has to manage and deal with that stuff and work with developers to figure out bugs and write up reports and stuff. So it's a lot of grunt work, which can be time consuming depending on how big your application is. And if you're talking about something as big as an MMORPG, you better believe their regression test alone is going to be hundreds of thousands of lines of scripts and thousands of scripts, test scripts and regression tests and stuff they got to run whenever a change happens or whenever a patch goes out. So generally these people are being underpaid and they just need some bodies there. They're very close to being like a tip job in some places. I never worked in places like that because I didn't want to deal with that kind of stuff. I always wanted to go contract to hire depending on the company. But it can be really, really daunting. So people just leave. They'll cancel their contract and they'll just not come back, or they'll just do the bare minimum. And the quality of the product really shows. And when I was in the industry, I always advocated for dedicated individuals that believed in the company, because the quality of their work would reflect that, and the quality of their work would reflect the quality of the product. I sold that to upper management many times. And even when I consulted on it, it's like the people there make up a lot of what the quality is going to be. You know, your people, the products that you're working with, and of course, you know, whatever processes you're using. It could be whatever dev cycle philosophy, you know, Scrum or whatever you want to talk about. But you got to make sure people are willing to put in the time and care about their work. And when you're talking about quality, if you don't care about what you're doing, things are going to slip. And when things slip, the product quality suffers. So when you're barely paying people, you treat them like slaves. They're basically working for free. The quality of the product is going to show that. And that's probably why Blizzard's stuff has been declining, as Bellular has said.
Plus, there's little protection when the contract expires. An employee could be let go, or they could be kept on for an undetermined amount of time. And basically that just means somebody's in a position where they can't financially plan out their future, right?
Wow.
So they're in a trap. Employees say they feel they're eminently replaceable. Kotaku says that this is a recurring theme across many different employee testimonies, that you almost feel the desperation jumping off the page.
It's sad that it is like that. It was like that 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So to hear that it's like that now is pretty sad. I think the differentiator in this story and what I went through is that these people are being paid pennies. At least when you got a QA contract, you got what you asked for. Most times you would get what you asked for. And contracts tended to pay more because they didn't include benefits. So they would throw a couple, 10 to 20, 10 to 15,000 on top of, what they would normally pay somebody. So it was decent money, right? So you really didn't care about being, expendable because, you know, your country, you got 6 months worth of money. This is going to make your whole year if you budget right? So you just work for 6 months out of the year and take the other 6 months off and chill. Or, you know, work on your skills or take some, you know, do some training. It's a pretty cool, you know, a pretty cool career when there's business and when people are hiring. But when they are hiring, it can be really scary. Which we've recently gone through, by the way. In the last 5 or 10 years, it's been pretty dry. Until like the last year, people have been going on hiring frenzies. But man, it's kind of sad that they're going through this, but at the same time, they're paying them pennies.
This is bad stuff. From Polygon, they basically just say that Activision Blizzard reinforces a misconception that QA is unskilled work, something a monkey could do.
The word I used was grunts. That's what they call them. They think it's grunt work. They really do. They think it's all you gotta do is read something. They think it's really, really skillless, and I had to fight against that a lot of times.
According to one source, in reality, they're doing extremely important stuff, as Polygon point out. Yet these workers told Polygon that higher-ups often emphasize to them that real developers are far or more important than QA workers.
Oh gosh, I could tell you how many arguments we had with a table of directors. I was a manager at the time. Oh gosh, we used to constantly have to fight for our lives in QA. And then we save the company. We find these critical bugs in the last possible second that would have made the company look really stupid. And they come back the next week and say the same exact thing. It was really, really bad, man.
The QA people are easily replaceable. And I will definitely tell you that from speaking to current and former staff and people in the industry, yeah, Blizzard's whole thing of raising up their developers and shielding their developers and protecting their developers has absolute toxic bullshit like this going on.
I mean, this is bad that Blizzard's doing this. Let's just say that, but this happens in a lot of places. This is a wake up call for those of you who didn't know about this. I've been at companies that have had one QA person for a team of like 50 developers. You know why? Because they relied on the developers' unit tests and their integration tests for all the testing. So that one person basically did like a couple things. And that was it. They ran like maybe a couple of automated scripts and that was it. And the amount of bugs that would get out was insane. And one of the first things we would tell these people is that, listen, you got to get serious about quality, man. You can't just rely on these unit tests, and these integration tests are only for certain types of things. You got to have somebody coming in there thinking differently and coming in with a different mindset to test this in a different way. You know, there's a lot of philosophies and different things, but that's like the blunt view thing. It's like, you got to think about this differently. You can't just assume that developers going to cover everything. Now, like I said, there's modern practices these days that integrate QA with the development team a lot tighter than the time I'm talking about, because it was more of a siloed, you know, boom, we're going to toss this across the wall to the QA development. Hey, I found a bug. We're going to toss it back to development, fix the bug. You know, it was very volleyballish, right? And a lot of times it wasn't optimized and it wasn't very clean. But the cycles took longer, but your quality was way up. What's being adopted these days is that, hey, we got something more streamlined, something that's faster. The quality sucks, but you can turn out a new build in a couple of days. So you got rapid iteration of crap instead of a long iteration of quality. These days we're accepting rapid iteration of crap, which I was very much against. I hated that. It's like, you end up spending more time fixing it anyway, so why don't you just do it because, I don't know, it's a customer mindset type of thing. It's like, hey, I want this fixed and I want it fixed now, so let's fix it. And they feel good and they get their dopamine rush of my bug being, I don't know what it is, and they keep going. But it really is it's a touchy subject in the software development realm, and it's not just Blizzard. It's pretty much industry wide.
There are departments that are not considered to be core development, like QA and stuff. I don't want to say any specific department names, but there's stuff like that where I've at least heard anecdotes of, yeah, the devs treat them like shit and don't respect them.
That's everywhere. Developers in general, they have this, in most places, they have this persona of, I know what I'm doing. QA guy, they look at them and they go, oh, this guy, he's just going to run a test on my stuff, so he doesn't know what he's doing. So there's this built-in, I'm here and you're here, in terms of technical knowledge, in terms of capability, in a lot of different areas. Developers think they're better than QA because that's the mindset they start with. It's like, I built this. You just have to run some buttons and check to see if it works. You're basically checking my work. I wrote the essay. You're just going to proofread it for me. Right? That's the mindset. And that usually causes bad quality. It usually does. I can go into detail why, but I'd have to charge you.
At least institutionally, they're not well respected. And again, as I said, anybody who plays World of Warcraft, who knows, you go to fight. I saw people today tweeting about Mythic Sylvanas. If the world boss is up in the latest zone they added to the game in patch 9.1, if that world boss is up and is being fought, the entire zone will go down. You will actually feel the lag. And for the 4 times that I've went to kill that world boss, I couldn't be bothered anymore, but for the 4 times that I did, it was literally non-functional due to lag.
That's still going on. Like, that's still going on.
One time its core mechanics didn't work, another time I was waiting like 6, 7, 8 seconds for my spells to go off. I had a perfect connection. It was world lag. This is just examples of World of Warcraft honestly being a buggy piece of shit. I mean, for the last number of weeks, they've been pushing out the new story quests, and there's just been more bugs than are acceptable. Right? This tells you that QA is extremely important. Yeah.
It's often overlooked, too, because the functional testers that are there probably don't see this. And there's a concept called functional testing under load, where you see this in games all the time, where unexpected behavior happens when things are stressed. So the things that break when the servers are overloaded, they generally don't see them. I used to do performance and load testing, so that was one of the things I stressed, is that we're going to throw a bunch of load at your application. Let's make sure the stuff works while it's being loaded up. It's a very, very basic concept in performance testing, is make sure functionality still functions, even though, your transactions may be going through, but your users may not be able to cast a spell, like you just said. And it's often overlooked. It's often overlooked because if the functional tests, if the functional tests pass, people are like, all right, let's ship it. And even if they do performance testing, a lot of times they don't, but even if they do any kind of performance testing, they don't do any functional testing to coincide with it. So all these bugs just come out all the time. It's really bad in the gaming industry, for real. Like in the software, in the software application industry and stuff, not gaming, it was very common to do that. You would have these spot checks to make sure that things worked when the server was overloaded. Because that's what your users would see. So you want to make sure you catch stuff before your users do. So even in your monitoring software, you would make sure that people can log in. They can enter a new account. They can do a search. They can click on a search result. They can run a process. This particular web service will still be able to get its data back to the application if there's 5,000 people hitting it at the same time. MMORPGs don't seem to test that most times. Because that's why you see all these problems at launch. And they're like, well, we couldn't anticipate it. We could actually, you could have. It just takes a little bit more work.
That should have obviously done a terrible job with it. And these people are not being treated well. I mean, look at this quote. It's kind of hard to help someone who's telling me to kill myself on a daily basis, all because of a video game.
Okay.
This is a fun situation that's also cropped up, where people are taking out their frustrations at the company.
They're talking about gamers. Okay. They're talking about the gamers that are lashing out. Yeah, that's a big problem.
Customer service staff, who absolutely do not deserve any of this shit, Because, here's the big thing, they almost certainly agree with the players and know that the whole situation is a piece of shit. Point is,
that's so true.
It's all just the company failing everyone who is involved in this. There's also an issue where basically Blizzard's internal programs always default to people's legal names, and this has resulted for some transgender people, like their old name sort of kept coming up and being used, which is not the done thing in a situation like that. It's a case of basic professionalism to do all of those things well. Another person reported that teammates refused to use their they-them pronouns, and they got hit with the classic, I identify as an attack helicopter. And the thing there is, like, the attack helicopter, I mean, it's like a meme from the internet and stuff.
Oh, God.
That's perhaps how whatever, I'm going to assume, man-child who said that brought it up. The thing is, though, there's a clear separation between the internet and between real life. And, you could make an argument that it's all, funny memes and stuff, the internet. But the thing is, when it enters into real life, almost regardless of what your personal opinion is on something, I mean, surely you're socialized and taught to treat others as you would like to be treated yourself, to treat people with respect. You don't have to agree with somebody to respect them, right? There's like basic levels of human decency that, in this case, nobody said anything to correct it. An employee reached out to HR about more sensitivity training, but didn't hear back for months. To be honest, see all that shit of like, oh, we've got a leadership consultant and a sensitivity training scheme. I am so doubtful that shit works as like, administering a pill.
Well, it's kind of... I gotta say, that's kind of anecdotal. Because if you've ever dealt with customer support or anybody at any company, there's always going to be people that are stupid and obnoxious. I'm just saying in general. I'm not relating to what he's saying here. There's always going to be people, and especially in support, because they're the low-hanging fruit. They're the ones that get frustrated. You're going to have somebody to lash back at you in support. So what you do is you give them a bad review, and their manager, they record their calls are recorded for quality purposes. You ever heard that? They go and listen to the recording and they go, wow, you're fired. Get out of here. And it's over. Right? And that's that. That's that. They get over it and they do it. So I don't know, man. Just picking that last part right there. I'm just like, that happens everywhere. That's not a Blizzard thing. That's not something that they're dealing with. That just happens everywhere. There's just, especially in support. Come on, guys. You ever call support and get somebody that was nasty or rude? It just happens. So I don't know.
After the problem has happened, but this is the sort of thing. Basic professionalism and decency covers this. At the end of the day, we're all going to have to band together in order to do great work and accomplish great things. And if that's going to happen, then lots and lots of people from different backgrounds are going to have to come together. That's just how it is. Now, a strong sort of, mission-focused company is going to know that it's very important for them to make sure that's all happening with harmony and that decency and professionalism are being applied, because those are the ways that you get lots of people who don't agree on everything to actually band together and to get the shit done that they need to get done. And by doing that, you foster respect, and you end up fostering understanding and overall situations being better. But if you let the bullshit happen, you don't reinforce that basic professionalism is...
Here's another thing. You don't have to deal with everybody. This is something that the internet doesn't know, is that you don't... He's talking about, like, you should give respect to everybody and all this stuff. It's like, at some point, you don't have to deal with everyone. You can politely walk away from anything and still, be a decent human being. I think the problem with modern social media is that people try to be nice and try to get everybody to like them and try to say the things that they want people to hear all the time. And you have to understand that not everybody's going to agree with you. People are probably going to be thinking bad things about you, and that's okay. That's human nature. People are going to think that way. Just walk away. Just don't talk to them anymore. You don't have to say anything bad or negative. Just say, have a nice day, and that's it. You don't have to give respect to everybody. especially if they're demeaning you. You can just say, okay, well, see you. And that's it. So I don't know. It's too much of that happening in this segment he's talking about. It's like, just come on, man.
Something you should practice in the workplace, then no shit you're going to have problems appear. And yeah, it could be something like this, which is obviously disrespectful. It could also be someone groping a boob. That has happened at Blizzard. So from Kotaku here, another one. The legacy of Blizzard is all about, you're working at Blizzard, aren't you lucky? But the reality is we were constantly dealing with difficult people in a culture that cares little for mental health and expects the same kind of smile all the time as retail does, one anonymous tester said.
They do?
The only way for this to truly change is to change the culture and the attitudes of the people in charge.
That's
absolutely is the case. And, I mean, I've heard anecdotes of just the people who basically live at the campus get real weird. Real weird. Now,
the thing that made me take a step back is the smile all the time. The smile all the time thing. Maybe that was some kind of training they took. I don't know. That doesn't sound realistic to me. Yeah, I don't know.
Now, look, I've been to the Blizzard campus. Wasn't really as cool as I was expecting it to be, honestly. I don't know. That aside, I could because looking around me, and especially from the perspective of, you know, being not America, right? Somewhere where towns arose in a very different manner, and I'm just looking around, seeing an endless sea, a massive urban sprawl of like all of these prefabs and chain restaurants and stuff, and I thought, oh bloody hell, I could totally see how I'd live in the office if I was here. And indeed, people who live in that area have said to me, like, yeah, that is kind of what it's like. Well, I should say there are very nice parts of that region that people have since showed me. I was very glad to be able to see that, but point stands. Just have all these people living in the office. That can lead to weird, screwy things. So yeah, screwy things going on. QA.
Yeah. Overall, I'll say this. It's sad that they're being paid so little. I think that's a crisis. And everything he said, the fact that they're getting $14 an hour in LA for even an entry-level QA job is a crime. That's not right. And the fact that they have a Blizzard tax, that you take a $7 an hour pay cut just to work for Blizzard, is also a crime. That's humanitarian stuff, for real. Because in LA, you can't live off of that. Like I said, 4 people in the studio can barely pay rent at that rate. And the fact that you're giving them a lower pay cut because they're working at Blizzard, the first thing that comes to mind is there's got to be laws against that. That's just crazy. A lot of the stuff in there, though, is some of the things I'm just like, okay, that happens everywhere. That's a lot of things. That's just bad business practices that in general happen. I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying that is reality. But the pay is where I think that's crazy. Because those people can barely live. And it is affecting their mental state. You're not going to care. You're not going to care about your end product. You're not going to care about the quality, which is why the video game is in the state it's in. All right. So, interesting story. Blizzard just getting nailed in the media these days. It's just getting worse and worse and worse for them. I'm starting to think it's not going to stop. I think it should have ended by now, but no, the ball is still rolling.